Baggy trousers are easier than they look, I'll show you how to draft the pattern and sew them step by step. Let's get started. So I have these two elastic band here. One measures 2 inches, the other measures 1 inch, so you can use whichever you have at your disposal. And I also have this fabric here, and it's in 3 yards. Break into 2. From the top edge of the fabric, come down by ½ an inch and draw a straight horizontal line. This will serve as our starting line or our waistline. Now let's talk about the fabric fold. For this trouser, we'll be creating a cut together side seam pocket, meaning the pocket is drafted as part of the trouser instead of cutting a separate pocket piece. It is the same technique we often use when cutting kaftans or bubu dresses. With cut-on pockets, I personally love it because it saves time and it gives a neat finish. To determine your fabric fold, use this formula: hip divided by 4 plus ease allowance plus 6 to 7 inches for pocket extension. For example, my client's hip is 46. 46 divided by 4 would give me 11.5 inches. I'll be adding 3 inches of ease, then an additional 6 to 7 inches for the cut together pocket extension. If your fabric isn't wide enough to accommodate this extension, don't worry, you can simply cut the pocket separately and attach it later. So on a fold, I have about 22 to 23 inches. Now measure 6 to 7 inches from the edge of the fabric and draw out a straight vertical line. This line marks where our pocket extension ends, and every horizontal measurement will be taken from now on starts from this line, not from the raw edge of the fabric. So whenever you see me taking any measurement, I'm measuring from this guideline, as you can see. 7 inches for my pocket extension, and after that 7 inches, that is where all my measurements will be starting from. Now extend your tape upward by 2 inches because my waistband will be 2 inches wide. Next, mark your vertical measurements. My client's hip is 10 inches, so I'll mark that first. Then I'll mark the crouch line, which is 13.5 inches. If you're not sure on how to get your crouch depth, I have a detailed tutorial on my channel explaining different methods. The easiest method is to sit on a flat surface and measure vertically from your waist down to the surface you are sitting on. You can also use the calculation method, hip divided by 4 plus 1 to 2 inches. Since we are making a relaxed baggy trouser, I prefer adding about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of ease. That is why my client's crouch depth is 13.5 inches. For larger sizes, adding up to 2 inches usually gives a more comfortable fit. Next, mark your full length of the trouser. Mine is 44 inches and I will add 1 inch for the hem allowance. Now let's work on the horizontal measurements. On the hip line, I will mark hip divided by 4 plus 3 inches for ease, and I'll also transfer the same measurement to the waistline and the crouch line. Remember, all these measurements are being taken from the vertical pocket guideline we drew earlier. And at the waist, I'm going to be coming in by ½ an inch. Then I'm going to be connecting these 3 points together. That is the waist, the hip, and the crouch, all with a straight line, just as you can see. Let's draft the crouch extension. Measure the width you have on your crouch line. Mine measures 4.5 inches. Divide that measurement by 4, which gives you approximately 3.6 inches. A simple shortcut is to divide the measurement by 2, then divide the result by 2 again. You arrive at the same value. Measure out your crouch extension, which mine is 3.6 inches. From that point, raise a line 1 inches upward at the right angle. Now connect everything with a smooth curve, making sure your curve passes through that 1 inch point before meeting the crouch extension. If you don't have a French curve, don't worry at all. A smooth freehand curve works perfectly. Now measure the total width across the crouch line. Mine measures 18 inches. Transfer that same measurement all the way down to the hemline and connect the point with a straight line, just as you can see. So this is just me cutting out this piece so that you can understand what I'm doing clearly, because my table is quite small. So at the waistline, I'm going to be coming down by 0.7 inches, that is 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to be connecting it to the side seam using my straight ruler, just like this. Now let's create the pocket opening. From the waistline, measure down 1 to 2 inches. For this tutorial, I'll be using 1 inch, but you can as well use 1 inch, 1.5 to 2 inches. This marks where the pocket opening begins. I don't recommend going lower than this because the pocket will sit too low on the body. From that point, measure down another 6 to 7.5 inches to determine the pocket opening length. Finally, draw your pocket bag. Make it deep enough to comfortably fit your hand, your phone, and of course your ego. Now it is time to cut. Simply follow the scissors. You will see exactly where each cut goes. One important tip: don't cut the 3/4 inch waist drop just yet. Leave it intact until we have drafted and cut the back piece. Once that is done, we will come back and trim it. I would be using the extra pieces to cut the waistband, and also this is what the pocket looks like, and I'm going to be cutting the excess from the full length. This is simply the front. You can see the pocket and the crouch. Fold another piece of fabric and place your front pattern on top, making sure you have extra fabric at the crouch extension and at the waistline. Next, extend all your horizontal guidelines marking from the front piece onto the back piece. This includes your waistline, your hip line, your crouch line, and your hemline. Next, we will create the back crouch extension. Measure 2 inches outward from the waist, hip, and crouch line on the back extension side. Then connect this point with a smooth line. At the crouch area, extend the back crouch by 2 inches. Then use your French curve or freehand to blend it smoothly into the existing crouch curve, creating a deeper back crouch. This extra extension gives the trouser enough room and comfort at the back. Now let's raise the back waist. From the waistline, come up by 1 to 2 inches depending on the person's seat or bum. 1 inch for a smaller or flatter seat, 1.5 inch for an average seat, 2 inches for a fuller or more prominent seat. For my client, I'll be raising the back waist by 2 inches. Using your ruler, connect this new point smoothly to the side seam, just as you can see. Connect the back crouch extension into the front, just as you can see on the screen. I recommend pinning the front pattern securely to the back fabric, especially if you're working with a slippery fabric. If your fabric is stable and doesn't shift easily, you may skip this step. However, for this tutorial, I'll pin mine down so that everything stays perfectly aligned while cutting. Now simply follow the shape of the front pattern for the side seam and the inseam while keeping the back adjustment we have just created. Cut carefully, following exactly what I am doing on the screen. At this stage, you can also trim the 3/4 inch waist drop on the front piece that we left earlier. We intentionally waited until the back was drafted before cutting this section, and that is our front and back piece fully drafted and ready for sewing. So we are done cutting, and this is what the piece look like, the back piece and the front piece. Let's begin by sewing the front crouch seam. Place both front pieces right side together and stitch along the crouch curve using 1/2 inch seam allowance. Repeat the same process for the back crouch seam, also using 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once that's done, place the front and the back piece right side together, making sure the side pockets line up perfectly. These pocket edges act as a guide to help you align both pieces accurately. Starting from the waist, sew down the side seam using 1/2 inch to 1 inch, that is 1/2 inch 3/4 inch or 1 inch seam. Then on the pocket bag, I'm going to be using 0.5 inches. Just follow what I'm doing on the screen. Stitch down to the pocket opening, sew neatly around the pocket bag, then continue sewing all the way to the hem. Repeat the same process on the other side. As always, if your fabric shifts easily, pin everything together before sewing to keep all the layers aligned. Next, sew the inseam. Starting from one trouser leg, stitch continuously using 1/2 inch through the crouch area and down to the other trouser leg. Now let's finish the hem. Fold the hem allowance by 1/2 inch, then further fold it by 1/2 inch and stitch. With the body of the trouser completed, we are ready to move on to the waistband. I'm going to measure around what I have at the waist, and I have 28 inches plus 1/2 inches I'm going to use to sew it together. For the height, I have about 5 inches, and these are the eyelets I'm going to be using for the drawstring opening. On the fold, I have 2.5 inches, and that is it. I gave it a good iron press and I folded it into half like this. At the middle where I joined it, I'm going to be coming out by 1 inch up on both sides so that I can install my eyelet, just as you can see. So this is where I'm going to be installing my eyelet, and at this part I'm just going to be notching it. First of all, I'm going to open it like this because I don't want it to come out at the other side. We're just installing an eyelet, so I'm just going to open it like this and give it a notch like this, a tiny notch. Don't over notch it, because if you do, it's going to be too big for the eyelet and the eyelet is not going to be free inside. I don't know what was happening to my soldering iron this time, so I just had to make do with what I could use. So I fixed my eyelet just like this into that hole, then I flipped it to the back. Then I used my eyelet cover to first of all cover it before notching the side just like this. Then I also used my scissors to notch it like this, then used that same scissors to bend the rough edges down, or I used my hammer. So this can help if you do not have an eyelet fixing machine. This can be a method that you could just use for that. So this is the outcome of what I have. At the bottom, I'm going to be going up by 1/2 inch and I'm going to be sewing it all round. After stitching, this is what I have, and at the middle I'm going to be having an opening of about 2 inches to 2.5 inches. This will be for my elastic insertion. To cut the elastic, my real waist is 38 inches, so I'm going to be removing about 4 to 5 inches for the elastic, and I'm going to cut that out on the elastic band. And I told you that it measures 2 inches, so I'm going to be using my safety pin to insert the elastic band through that 2 inches to 2.5 inches opening that I had. Then I'm going to insert it just as you can see. After that, this is what it looks like now. Then I'm going to be securing the opening of the elastic, and finally this is the outcome. So I am going to stretch it out so that you can see, and I'm going to be coming down by 1/2 inch and I'm going to sew it all round. As I am stitching, I'm going to be drawing it. Please, when you're stitching, be drawing it out just as you can see. Then I'm going to fold my rope that I added as a drawstring. So you can fold your rope any way you know how to fold it. So this is just different styles that you can use to fold your rope or your strap or your drawstring. And that's it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, please like this video, subscribe for more beginner friendly sewing tutorials, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy sewing!